Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this week's installment of our weekly webinar series. I'm Virginia Hyland. I'm the head of solutions engineering here at TeamOhana. So I get to work with all of our customers who are looking to find a better and more streamlined way to manage their headcount plan. So I work with everyone from finance to HR to talent operations to sometimes we even speak directly with the business who are looking for an easier and simpler way to manage their headcount plan. So today we're going to be focusing on finance and talking about how finance can really become a better partner to the business. Since you think about the role of the finance business partner, ultimately they that role or that function exists to support the business leaders that need their help when it comes to budget management. And specifically, we're going to be talking about headcount budget management, since headcount is the largest portion of a given company's spend if you're in the tech industry or services industry or essentially anything outside of physical goods. So that becomes a really big part of budget management. So, in terms of the agenda for the webinar today, we're going to start just by framing up the problem or the challenge with how most customers that we talk to struggle with headcount planning today and where finance and the business has some friction. And then we'll go into a demo of the TeamOhana platform and really how it can help solve some of the challenges specifically for the finance team, but then also how we can provide business leaders like your head of engineering, your head of sales, those that are managing a headcount plan, making changes, finding room in the budget day to day, how we can give them more self-serve tools. So rather than slacking or emailing their HRBPs or their finance business partners to get information, they can actually log into a tool and have it all there live and also make and request changes live there as well, rather than getting lost over email. All right, so with that, I just want to start by framing up the challenge. And this probably will look familiar to you if you're involved in headcount planning, whether you're in the finance team or the HR teams. I like to think about it just in the example of how one headcount moves during the year. So obviously, if you're joining this webinar, you're probably hiring hundreds of new heads every single year, whether those are backfills or incremental hires. But even if we just look at the life cycle of one headcount, what it takes to get one headcount approved and hired and forecasted accurately, you'll see that there's a lot of different systems and touches that are required. So then you multiply that by the hundreds that you're hiring, the problem becomes quite overwhelming to manage without a system like TeamOhana. Okay, so let's say for this one headcount that a leader, let's say the head of engineering, makes a headcount decision in a meeting. I need to hire a new AI engineer in order to get this project that we've just decided as part of our OKRs done on time. So that leader might go to a hiring manager and say, hey, I got approval for, or we discussed and we want you to hire one new head on the engineering team. So that hiring manager gets that information. They're like, okay, I just have to get the formal approval in Slack or in email, right? Because we need a document audit trail that says, yes, this headcount was formally approved and there's budget for it. So they kick off that approval in Slack. Once that approval is complete, so finance is looped in, maybe total rewards if you need to benchmark the compensation and so on, then that headcount goes into an annual plan spreadsheet. So this is typically where the overall agreed upon hiring plan is tracked, often maintained by your people business partners, or there might be one version of a spreadsheet maintained by finance and another version maintained by HR. But either way, that approved headcount gets put into a spreadsheet. Hopefully the hiring manager and the leader also have visibility into that spreadsheet. From there, hiring process gets kicked off in your ATS. So in this example, thinking about greenhouse, and hopefully that spreadsheet is updated now with that new status to know that headcount is being recruited for. But then you need to make a change to the headcount. Maybe you were doing some interviewing and realizing, oh, the level 2 that we were looking for is probably not experienced enough for what we need this role to do. We probably need to increase the scope of this role to a level 3. So in order to do that, we need to go back to the finance team, make sure that there's room in the budget, and put that change request back through an approval. So once that change request is approved, we're updating the spreadsheet, we're updating Greenhouse, we find a candidate, we send them an offer. So now we have the actual amount that we're going to pay that candidate on the offer in Greenhouse. Again, we have to update that spreadsheet with that updated status and updated compensation. Then our candidate is hired. We create them in our HRIS. We update the spreadsheet again to make sure that that headcount is now closed and accounted for. We have an employee that's going to be joining the business, so we want to make sure we don't open another rec to recruit against that headcount since it's already filled. And then as all of this is happening, finance is also trying to keep track of their headcount forecast. So as we're changing the roles, target start dates change, details change on the offer, finance is trying to capture all of these changes so that they have an up-to-date forecast every single month. And then HR is also reporting in a dashboard. So that was the workflow that we just went through for one headcount. There's 6 different systems between your approval flows happening in Slack or email, your spreadsheets, your FP&A tool or spreadsheet, your ATS, and your HRIS, right? And many different people have to be involved in this process, and it can be quite difficult to track. So, what I want to talk about today is how we can streamline this experience for finance and the business. Obviously, there is a lot in TeamOhana that's also for TA and HR when we think about the ATS integration. But for today's session, we're really talking about finance business partners and their corresponding counterparts in the business. So recently, we actually have received a few inbound inquiries from CTOs themselves who are coming to TeamOhana saying, I'm really struggling to manage my headcount plan. I have all of these engineering hires that I need to hire. I have this budget that I'm trying to track towards, but it's really hard for me to track towards it in a spreadsheet. I don't have a clear view into my job catalog, so I don't know what different roles cost, and just all of these changes are getting really hard to track in a spreadsheet, so I need a better system in place. And that to us is a signal that there's a real opportunity here for finance and their corresponding business partners to work better together, right? If finance's function is to help the business understand their budget and their forecast and where they're at, then we shouldn't have, it should be easy for, they should have tools that it makes it easy for their business counterparts to see these things rather than being a bottleneck that just sits in the middle, having to answer all of the Slack inquiries or create a new spreadsheet every single time a business leader wants to understand their current progress with their headcount plan. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch into our demo today so we can talk about how TeamOhana can really help address these problems. And the main thing we're going to focus on here is there's 2 parts to it. So one, what does finance get out of a system like TeamOhana? And then 2, how can TeamOhana help business leaders become more self-serve and give them visibility into their approved hiring plan, into their progress against budget so that they can do a lot of this management and what if analysis by themselves so that by the time they come to finance, they already know whether or not they have budget for the requests that they're making. And then they can also get streamlined visibility into approval flows and where all of their headcounts are at from an approval perspective. Okay, so we're going to start off with that self-serve visibility piece for your business leaders. So we'll start by looking at our hiring tracker here. Hiring tracker is exactly how it sounds. It's going to replace that manual spreadsheet that we talked about that maybe today you are able to share with business leaders, or maybe because it contains headcount data across all departments, business leaders don't even have a way to access it. TeamOhana is access controlled, so the head of engineering will only see headcount that sit within their division, whereas the head of sales can only see sales headcount that report into them. And the hiring tracker is going to give each of these leaders visibility into all approved headcount in their plan. So on the left here, we can see the plan progress. We can see how many headcounts we've hired out of our total target for the year. And then we get a detailed breakdown of where we're at in terms of the prioritization of each of these hires, right? When we build out that annual plan at the beginning of the year, we're probably staggering some of those hires quarter over quarter. And I want to be able to come in and see, okay, which headcount is the recruiting team actually hiring for right now? So that would be our in progress heads versus what do I still have in my pipeline to hire, but we just haven't prioritized it to hire yet. And then which headcount are ready to hire. So ready to hire is a special flag in TeamOhana that gives talent and the business the ability to prioritize of all of the headcount that have been approved for the year, which ones are you going to send to TA next once they have open capacity. So it gets everyone on the same page in terms of what's next, what's coming down the hiring pipeline next that we can begin recruiting for once we clear out some of the recs that are already in progress. And then our final status here is your offer stage. So this is actually being fed directly from your ATS. So if I click into any of these headcounts in the offer stage here, I actually am getting all of the offer details from the ATS. So as a hiring manager, I don't need to log into a different system in order to understand the details that were sent out on a given offer. Right. So now finally you have one single centralized source of truth that's reconciled with your HRIS and your ATS, and business leaders can come in order to see their headcount pipeline themselves. A big part of TeamOhana is enabling hiring managers themselves to use the platform. So throughout, you'll see there's a lot of different usability features that we have here. One being our new universal search. Wherever I am in the platform, I can come in and search a specific headcount ID or I can search a specific title, and the system will easily help me search this regardless of the status that headcount is in. If I knew it existed at one point, I'll be able to search for it in my search bar here. Last thing on this page here that is helpful for hiring managers is all of our different headcount signals. So this is surfacing where you might need to take action on a given headcount. First one here, you have your prioritization. So hiring managers can set the priority of different headcounts in order to signal to the TA team which ones they want to prioritize and which ones they want to focus on. You also have your at risk and past due headcounts. So we automatically calculate whether something is at risk or past due based on target date milestones. So every headcount in TeamOhana has a target start date, and then we back calculate for you the target hire date and the target open date of that rec. So it makes it easier for hiring managers to understand when do we actually need to begin recruiting in order to hit that target start date. And then the benefit here on the finance side is by making sure we proactively surface headcount that are at risk or past due. This is also an issue with your forecast. If we have a target start date that's in the past, but we haven't filled that role, then your forecast is going to be out of date. So this is a flag to say, hey, you need to clean up these headcount and push their target start dates out because you clearly weren't able to hit that currently forecasted date. One last signal here that I find really helpful is missing compensation. So depending on how your business runs, whether you have a fully built out job catalog or not, sometimes you'll need to approve a headcount before Total Rewards has a chance to benchmark that role. Again, this can lead to forecasting issues for finance and obviously can block on the hiring side. You can't begin hiring if you don't know what the compensation for the role is going to be. So flagging roles with missing comp is an important part of this as well. So this is the hiring tracker and an easy way for a business leader to come in and understand which of their headcount have been approved. So if I'm the head of engineering, for example, and I want to come in and check to see if I have my data engineer approved, I can come in, filter down this list by data engineer and see all of my approved headcount. I can also save my different views if there's particular views I want to configure. And then there's many different ways I can filter to narrow down my view here. Later on, we'll see in the demo, though, that we also have a Slack agent where I can ask all of these questions directly in Slack. I don't even need to log into TeamOhana to self-serve. But the next piece I want to move into is the variance tracker. So we have our hiring tracker here, which shows our number of heads and the headcount details. Our variance tracker is going to give me visibility into my available budget, my forecast, and my budget variance. So whether you build a bottoms up budget or a top down budget on the finance side, Both of those are supported by TeamOhana. And so the finance team can set the total budget envelope for the year here. And then we're going to calculate what the total forecasted headcount cost is for the year. So we're applying a load factor to this to get it as accurate as possible. And we'll calculate the variance here. So as a leader, I can quickly come in and see what was my total budget for the year, where am I forecasting to hit, and then what's my variance. And then within that, I can understand what's driving that variance. So I can break down my total forecast by department. I can see it by number of heads as well as by dollars. So here I can see broken down by department what the forecasted spend per department is. And then depending at what level my budget is set, so in this case it's set at the division level, I can see which divisions are over and under budget. If I want to understand more about what caused me to go over budget, I can come down here into our new hire budget variance, which is showing me what's causing those changes. So I can see where did I spend more due to early hiring, higher pay, or adding in completely unplanned hires. And then where did I save money by pushing target start dates out and then offering lower pay than the forecasted amount. And each one of these I can click into to see a complete list of all of the headcount where the comp variance has gone over the initial plan. So this could signal things like maybe I just sent out an offer to a candidate or I hired a candidate for more than the midpoint of the compensation band. Or maybe I completely repurposed a role. I up-leveled it or moved it to a higher cost location that ultimately caused me to increase the overall cost of the headcount. But either way, finance is able to track these type of details in their FP&A tool, but often we hear that the FP&A tool is not designed for the business to log in and see it. So while finance will continue to track and calculate their forecast in their FP&A tool, and we have many connectors to help automate that tracking, the business now, for the first time, gets visibility directly into their forecast and their variance in order to understand if they have budget to make the changes they want to request. So I often say that TeamOhana is a tool for finance, but really it's a tool for finance to give this type of visibility to their business partners. The one way that finance typically gets involved in using TeamOhana is in the approval flows. So I'll take you through an example of one of those. So again, as a hiring manager, if I'm coming into TeamOhana, I can easily make requests for new headcounts or backfills directly from this create dropdown. I can also create a scenario, which we'll see shortly as well. But let's just say I want to request one new headcount. I'll hire a manager here. We'll pull through your full job catalog, and then you'll see once I select the location, we'll also pull through the benchmark compensation as well. So it makes it very easy for hiring managers to fill out this form. We have lots of customers who have trained hundreds of hiring managers to request a new headcount here. We'll put it through approval, and every approval flow is configurable. So finance will receive an email notification and a Slack notification when it's their turn to approve a headcount. And I'll pull up that Slack to show you what that looks like. So this is just for a one-off headcount request. So I can see all of the details of that headcount request. I can comment, I can view that headcount back in TeamOhana, and then I have the option to approve it or not. Or I can approve it directly from Slack. So that's just a one-off headcount request. I also want to go through the scenarios, since that tends to be a really helpful part of the self-serve element of this. So this is where a hiring manager or a department head or a division lead wants to make multiple changes to their hiring plan. So let's create a scenario called engineering changes. So now I have this scenario. It's just for engineering. So I can see the total budget for engineering, the total forecast, and the budget variance. I can invite collaborators. So if I'm the finance business partner, I've just created this scenario and I want to invite everyone on the engineering leadership team to the scenario. I can add them. as limited editors, so we'll still respect their user permissions. And now Sophia can come in and play around and understand how the changes she makes are going to impact her forecast. So let's say she needs to up level this engineering role. So she just changed that role from an IC1 to an IC2. We're going to keep track of all of these changes that we've made. So you can see I've changed this from IC1 to IC2, which impacted the target compensation. And then the system is going to automatically calculate the impact to your forecast. So here we can see that we increased the forecast by 11K by up leveling that role. And this is that fiscal year forecast, by the way. If you want leaders to also look at the annualized run rate, we can flip and you'll see that it's more because now we're not taking into account the target start date. And so let's say since we up leveled this role, maybe I need to make a budget neutral change. I can see I'm already over budget. So where am I going to find space in my budget? Maybe I need to change some of these roles to a lower cost location. So I can do that. We can do currency conversions, whether you want to set your own or use our spot rates. So here you'll see we change the location, we change the compensation as well, and then we'll just convert back to your base currency in order to calculate the overall forecast. So because we changed to such a lower cost location, we've now made this change a decrease rather than an increase overall. And I can click on this change log in order to understand all of the changes. So we have the role that we up leveled that increased, and then we also have our role that we changed locations that dropped the target impact by 147K. So these are the types of changes that your business partners are probably either trying to do in spreadsheets today or trying to work with a finance business partner to get a spreadsheet set up or just communicate over Slack to understand how they can make these changes. Now, because we've loaded in your job catalog, we're doing all of that math and all dealing with all of that complexity for you to make it very easy for them to understand how every single change that they want to make to their plan contributes to the overall change in the forecast. So then from there, with this scenario, once they're happy with all of the changes that they've made, you can also put that through an approval flow, and finance will be looped in to sign off on that. So in this case, I actually just updated some headcounts. I didn't add any headcount, but they could add additional heads in this scenario as well. And they can also just request one-off changes to their headcount plan. So TeamOhana can really become the front door for your business leaders to log in, see what's happening with their hiring plan, and request changes to it. So it's a really helpful tool, especially for leaders who have a ton of different headcount that they're managing and they're being tracked. They have goals around button seats or how many heads they fill within the quarter or within the year. This is finally a way for them to come and see what's happening, but it also gives finance that trust and control to know that anytime a change is being made to the plan, you'll be looped in to the approval workflow. And then from there, we're going to keep track of all of the changes that are happening. So on every single headcount, we have a complete audit trail of everything that happened on that head, who requested it, who signed off on it. And this is all queryable. So I'll end with taking this one step further with our TeamOhana Computer. So most of what we just saw is all taking place within TeamOhana. But now you actually don't even need to use Slack, or you don't even need to leave Slack in order to get this information from TeamOhana. So the beauty of TeamOhana is that we standardize your data model across all of the different systems involved in hiring, your ATS and your HRIS. And now we're tracking all of the headcount data in one place. That then makes it very easy to query. So essentially imagine using Claude Code on top of all of your clean, reconciled headcount data that lives in TeamOhana, but with access control. So any user of TeamOhana can use a TeamOhana computer and it will respect their permissions. So if I'm the head of finance, for example, I'll only be able to see roles that I have access to. Maybe that's a bad example because finance might be allowed to see everything. So if I'm the head of sales, I can only see sales headcount as an example. So in this example, I just asked the computer a simple question. Do I have any room in the engineering budget to offer 10K more for TOH 8? And I got some feedback. Yes, there's available room. So it's giving me the overall budget and the current forecast, and then what I'll be spending for that particular role. And I can do other things with it as well. Let's say, okay, it says I have room in my budget for TOH 8. So I will ask it, can you up level TOH 8 one level? So I can actually take action directly from Slack here as well. So you imagine today, I might have to actually reach out to my HRBP on Slack or my finance business partner on Slack in order to get them to make a change to my hiring plan. Now, instead, I can go right to the computer, ask them to make that change. And so now it's asking me to confirm that I want to up level TOH8 from IC2 to IC3. And it's highlighting it will raise a change request. So finance still gets to control it. And for this demo, let's actually just search up that TOH8 to show you how this works. So here we have our TOH8. We're in IC2. I'm going to go ahead and apply that change. Okay, so now it confirmed that the change has been submitted, but it's still pending approval. And if I summarize here, let me just log back in. Okay, sorry about that. I had to log back in. But now you can see that the change request has been submitted. So the job category and level change from IC2 to IC3, and it needs to be approved before it's reflected here. So if I just approve that as an admin, now we'll see that change is complete. And I kicked that all off in Slack. So that's really the future, I think, of usability in TeamOhana is being able to take actions, ask questions, and get them answered in TeamOhana Computer. But definitely check out our webinar because there's many other interesting use cases for the computer that goes beyond just those two simple examples that we went through. But that concludes our demo and our webinar for today. So if you're interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out and schedule a demo with us. We don't have a webinar next week, but keep an eye out because we will be continuing our webinar series in the next few weeks. Thanks for joining.